Show. Welcome to the BodkinShow special Friday edition here, folks. That's right. It's a lovely Friday evening edition of the BodkinShow. Our guest could not do our Sunday time slot, but I wanted to get in our guest because he is busy, and so Friday night worked for him. I said Friday is the best time. We'll do Friday. We still might do a Sunday show. Working on another guest here, so we might have 2 weekend Bodkin shows for you. But no longer, I'm not going to make our guests wait any longer. Joining me tonight for this special Friday edition, we wanted to get it in because baseball season the first half is wrapping up this weekend. The All-Star break starts Monday, so I wanted to bring in ex-professional player, coach of it's Alpha Academy. It's not Academy. It's Alpha
Performance.
Alpha Performance. There, I knew I'd screw it up. For some reason, Academy sticks in my head. Alpha Performance, Ex-MLB player Johnathan Grishman. Thank you for joining us on this Friday night special episode of the Bodkin Show. I appreciate you taking your time and coming and joining me tonight.
Always. I'm enjoying doing these shows with all you guys. I appreciate you taking the time and inviting me onto the show. I've been looking forward to it all week since you mentioned it to me.
Yeah, we were on Monday's show. Again, if you missed it, the Buffoon and Bodkin Show, make sure you check that out. So, Johnathan, you always been a baseball guy as a kid? Is like that what the sport you just loved from the day one? Or, was there other sports that you just, loved as well?
No, baseball was my first love. I grew up around the sport. I played other sports as well growing up. Played golf, basketball, soccer, football. But baseball was just that one that I just fell in love with. My dad is a Division I college baseball umpire, so I grew up around the game from him. And it was just that love at first sight type of thing with the sport, and it was something that I grew that passion for every day that I was able to grab a ball and a bat and be able to just go out and play ball, whether it's with the friends and playing wiffle ball growing up or being on the field competing in league and whatnot. And it was just that fire that grew as I was younger, that I wanted to be able to play and dream big. I was that kid that dreamed big, that wanted to play college baseball, professional baseball. It was something that I knew it was my calling. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else when I was a child, when I was starting up this game.
So, talk us through that. Through college, you said like how that went, and then that process after college. Like, how did that go?
Yeah. Well, I'll take you further back when I was growing up a little bit more, and I got to high school. I ended up having elbow surgery in high school, freshman year of high school, 14 years old, and getting cut under the knife with a very severe elbow injury that actually was supposed to take me out of the baseball forever. I was never supposed to throw another ball ever again. And I'll never forget a conversation leaving the doctor's office before the surgery was done. My dad and I looked at each other, and he goes, "How bad do you want to play?" And I'm in tears as a 14-year-old, like, man, I want to play this game. He goes, "Want to learn how to throw left-handed?" and for 2 years at that point, because I couldn't throw right-handed anymore, so I for 2 years during that time, and I was like, well, let's go. So we worked on throwing left-handed. I got to get to high school sophomore year, and I was playing JV ball as a lefty in high school, and just kind of worked my way to get to the point where I can be pretty decent. But for fast forward a little bit longer, I finally was able to get cleared playing baseball, throwing right-handed again. For miraculous, I don't know what it was. It was just something that I felt blessed to get cleared to start throwing right-handed again, and work my butt off to get to the point of playing college. And again, I worked. Didn't get to play any varsity games in high school. I'll tell you that right now. I played 0 games in varsity. Things that took place. My health wasn't quite 100% just yet with my arm, and outside of my control, I nothing I could do. But I stayed hungry to be able to get to that point of playing college, and I worked myself off out to get to the point where I could play. Fast forward 2 years when I signed my first scholarship, redshirt my first year, and I blew my shoulder out actually playing outfield and third base. So it was Murphy's Law for me from what was going on health wise, where it was one thing after another, after another, and after another. But man, you fast forward to where I'm at today. I sit back and I reflect on it. I was like, I couldn't imagine anything else. But blew my shoulder out, turned an 8-month rehab my sophomore year. So I was done with junior college at this point, turned an 8-month rehab with the goal of I'm going to continue to play. I need to get myself to play ball. I still haven't played a meaningful game in 6 years at this point. I got to get to it. I turned an 8-month rehab for my shoulder, rotator, and labrum, and was cleared in 2 months to start throwing again. Worked my butt off and finally got a scholarship at a Division II NCAA school and played 3 years there, worked my butt off even more, got myself to start playing professional and went from there, bounced around a little bit in minors. And, the journey was just what it was. I couldn't imagine. I wish it could have been easier. I wish I could have gotten the easier road, but, man, it fit my personality as far as being able to work and having obstacles in front of me to make me work harder. And that's what I did.
So, I mean, resiliency, man, that's just, kind of that's your nickname if you ever made it, So was at 14, was that just pitching? Because a pitching overuse of pitching at 14, back in them days, they're teaching to throw a curveball at 10, right? Like, is that
I'll tell you this, it was pitching, but I never threw a curveball. My dad was my coach. He never taught me to throw a curveball. His rule was once you turn 15, you throw it, then we'll start working you on a curveball. It was just overwork. Again, talk about back in the day when I played, we didn't have really pitch counts. We didn't really know as far as the full structural damage that can be done at that age. So from 9 years old to 13 years old, I pitched spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, 3 straight years. And, man, you pitching almost every week, very little rest in between. And it was just it overworked it. We sit back and talk about it recently, and what if we could have gone back and he my dad being what he is, he goes, man, if we could have gone back and kind of rested you a little bit more, what could have happened? Well, it is what it is, unfortunately. But that's what it was. It was mechanics at times. It was overwork, never throwing curveball, and I follow that suit to my athletes today. I don't teach kids to throw curveballs until they get to 15 years old. Let their arms develop and get stronger, and that was what for me as well. But, man, it was just that back in the day where nobody really knew much about the pitch counts. Nobody kept a count for pitch counts and the usage, and that's where it kind of haunted me a little bit.
So when you were working on left-handed, were you pitching left-handed or just trying to throw, like just playing like outfield left-handed? Because I can't even like do anything with my left hand, so I couldn't even imagine like pitching or even throwing, like teaching my brain to throw left-handed. So were you pitching left-handed and like at that age too?
Towards the back end of the 2 years that I was throwing, my dad was pushing me to pitch left-handed, and I did actually get a few games in pitching. Wasn't the best, but again, I'm 15 years old at that point trying to do it left-handed. And I think in the 2 games that I pitched, I had 4 strikeouts, 4 walks, 2 hits, something like that. It was just a little bit rough outing of it. But the goal was not necessarily to pitch. It was just to get back on the field, get myself to be able to where I can hit a little bit more and still and get the game action, because it was 3 at that point when I was 15. It was 3. I hadn't played in 2 years. So we were just trying to get our stuff going, and then by me turning 16, I was like, "Hey, now let's get you to pitch a little bit." And I'm like, "Man, that's just that was going to be rough." I felt like I was not necessarily confident to do it at left-handed, just at that point. But for someone who's learned for 2 years, I'd say I did pretty well in that aspect of it. But the last outing I pitched, about a month after that, is when I went to the doctor and got myself cleared to throw right-handed. And I looked at my dad and go, "Get my glove. We're going to throw right-handed again."
If you stick at it left-handed, that's just wild. Most people shut it down. There's no way I could ever even think about throwing left-handed, and you're throwing left and right. So, like after high school, you said you didn't get any varsity games, and so how did that scholarship or lead to college? Because to me, most you play varsity, you get scholarships, and then that's how. So, how did you get into college? Was it like a walk-on, or how walk us through that story?
I made phone calls. I called. A lot of my athletes today, they have it so easy with all these programs and everything that are out there and everything. I made phone calls. I called coaches. I sent the emails out and I sent as much. I did practices on my own. I'd film. We try to get as much film as we could. This is 2007, 2008. So we try to do as anything I could, and I made phone calls every day. I after school, and I go practice a little bit on my own. I wasn't really playing with my high school because I said I was still kind of getting myself back in shape for my arm, and my high school coach he just kind of cast me to the side and didn't give me the opportunity to play. So I made opportunities with myself. So I made phone calls and I set up recruiting visits for myself and called my dad who was in Texas and I'm in Louisiana. I said, hey, I got a school in Texas that they want to come see me, or they want me to come see them. Can we get something, maybe a plane ticket or whatnot? And he goes, yeah, let's go. And hop me on a plane and go to Dallas Fort Worth. Met a couple coaches out here, and I did workouts, and that was the best way for me to get myself noticed was, hey, come in here and see what I can do. But it was it. I made the phone calls. I did the emails. I just did everything I could to get somebody to look at me and say, yeah, I want you. I want you in my program. And, it was a junior college at first that I went to out here in Dallas. Got me a scholarship. It was a small scholarship, but hey, at that point when you don't play ball for a while and you're still getting something, I said, yes, let's get to work. And it is what it was. But I just put the time in. I said my love for this game. I couldn't see myself not playing college baseball, and I did everything that was necessary to get somebody to look at me and say, yeah, I want you.
Man, that's just insane because, you just think about, at 14, you're going through this surgery, and then, most people shut it down then. Hey, it is what it is. It sucks to suck. But then, you just kept going. And then for you to even say, I'm going to continue to, push beyond, pretty much fuck my high school baseball coach and that guy. I'm going to get out here. I'm going to get myself recruited. I'm going to do my best. That is, most kids these days and most people at that age, especially 16, 17 years old, they're just, too busy hanging out with friends and having a good time. But you had this dream in mind and continue to pursue it. It absolutely just amazes me, man. That in itself is one of the most resilient stories, of a lot of people I ever heard. So, after college, you get into college, and we talked about playing A-ball, a little minor league A-ball. So, talk to me about that. Was were you drafted, signed as a free agent, or how did that process work out? And a little bit of the A-ball.
Man, again, it's kind of a similar situation I went through high school. I got to college, I played, and my college coach didn't necessarily believe in me to get to that level, and I had to work every year. He brought in first baseman after first baseman to take my job, and he told me, these guys are coming here to take your job, and we'll decide on your future at that point. And I looked at every year he'd tell me that, and I looked at him and go, they can try. They're gonna have to outwork me. You're not going to just give them the job. They're going to have to outwork me to get it. And when I got to my senior year, I tried to do what I can to say, hey, where can I potentially get drafted? Could that happen? Is that something where I'm at? My numbers were pretty good, batting over 300 for the time being I was there. My power numbers weren't there yet. I was still developing my power, but as a contact hitter, as a first baseman, I was pretty good at that, and my defense was good. But no, I didn't get drafted though. I didn't get the support in school to be able to do that. It was kind of okay, where I was high school, get myself recruited. Let's do the same thing. I've already been down this road once. Let's do it again. So I made phone calls. I called scouts. I'd call up to say, hey, here's I'm Johnathan Grishman. This is the positions I play. I'm in the Dallas Fort Worth area. I'll drive to you. I drove to Oklahoma. I drove to Louisiana. I played out I did a workout in Arizona just to try to meet with scouts as many as I could. I went down to Houston a couple times just to try to get somebody, again, say yes to me one time. And was able to go and play ball in New Mexico a little bit. Independent ball was where I started out first, just to get myself, experience at professional baseball. Worked my way through that and, bounced around into New York and independent ball. Then I got myself an opportunity to play international in Puerto Rico for a season. And traveling the country again in my early to mid 20s. I'm traveling the country. I'm traveling international. There's nothing better I could have done. And from the time that I went to Puerto Rico is when I got a chance to go single A and be able to work it out there and get a cup of coffee is how they call it out there. When you get a little bit of time out at that level. It didn't last long. I won't say. I mean, it didn't last long at that point, but I got that opportunity and experience to sit there and say, hey, I made it that high. I made it that far. Coming from where I was 14 years old, shoulder surgery, at 19. I mean, who would have thought where I was at to be able to get to that point?
Yeah, you're supposed to be a Disney movie, man. You just missed it out, like you could have been the Rookie 2 or something like that. I mean, just your story is incredible.
I will say real quick, that movie was actually part of an inspiration for me because I loved that movie growing up, and I was like, man, I had a scar on my arm and I'm sitting there thinking, why can't that be me? Why can't that be? So that it's funny you brought that up because that was one of my inspirational movies that I sat there and say, hey, I could be the next one that gets that opportunity like that.
I mean, it's exactly what that is. You just, I mean, the story, the bouncing around to the independent leagues. So was it the A-ball that you talked to, the cup of coffee at the A-ball? Was that what organization was that? Was that like with an organization in the pros? Like
it was Rangers.
Okay.
It was with the Rangers. Got up there in spring training. Worked out with them for a few weeks. Everything was going good. I was playing really well. And then things just didn't work out at that point. They made a business decision on what they needed at that point. They needed pitching. So when I was playing third base and first base. They had Joey Gallo, who was still kind of getting himself up there, in the Double A, Triple A. He was a talk of the Rangers minor leagues at that point. So third base and first base was not necessarily a priority. You still had Mitch Moreland at first base in the big league club too. So pitching was their biggest need, and I'm like, well, my days of pitching were long gone. So, but I got that opportunity, and it was. I'll never. I tell kids all the time that I coach that the first day I was out there was just. I had to lay my head on the grass for a second. I was like, "This is awesome. This is amazing. I'm out here and everything. This is great."
Yeah, I mean, even it had to feel like you made it, right? Like, I mean, even though you didn't make it to like the show, but for somebody who was told at 14 years old, here you are, probably close to 10 years later, making it to that percent that not even anybody ever told you should have made it. So I can only imagine that's like sitting on top of the mountain right there. Is like you're seeing live pitching. I mean, you're talking about guys that are playing. Like you saw those guys play, and it's not even just sitting as a fan. Like you're suiting up in the clubhouse with them. I mean, to me, that's just like my jaw is dropping because we've been on shows together, but I didn't know I told you I like to learn about people, and like, man, that's just that's a killer for me. So like at what point you're at the Rangers at the A-ball, like you're just like, you know what, the dream is the dream, and I'm done chasing it. And what led you to that?
After I got let go, I did a few more workouts. I had a workout with the Giants. I had a workout with the Marlins. My physicals I wouldn't get past anymore. I actually ended up having a back injury in 2011. I had I had two herniated discs in my back in college that I played through. It got worse as time went on. Obviously, it doesn't matter how much I'm working. It got worse over time. And when I got to do physicals at that point with those two teams, they just wouldn't pass me. And I'm like, well, at that point, it doesn't look like I'm going to get that opportunity anymore to get it up to step on the field. So medically, I had to hang it up. That was the unfortunate side. And I tell you, it eats at me a little bit because I'm like, man, I wish I would have been told you're just not good enough anymore instead of you're good, but we can't have you play because of these medical injuries, which I'm sitting there thinking I've played through every injury you could think of, rotator cuff and elbow injuries, concussions I've had. And this back injury was going to be the one that I kind of knew. I knew it was going to at some point catch up to me and really somebody's going to find out about it and say, hey, this is a problem. We got to do it. I hit it as long as I could. I don't think actually my college coach even knew I had a back injury, and I played through with him over there. And then 3 years prior in pro ball, I played through it and I did everything I could to hide. But they were able to catch it a little bit. Those two teams were able to catch it, and they just say, hey, we have to flag you on it. I'm like, all right, well, now it's time for the next chapter.
So I guess is that what was the next? Is that the Alpha? Is that Alpha? Is that I'm going to say Academy, but I keep getting it wrong every time.
Man, I got into coaching during my careers with my pro ball. I was kind of doing a little bit of bouncing around in local DFW coaching, some of the select younger teams. I didn't really have a home at the time. I was just trying to get in the game. I was trying to learn about coaching. I always had a passion for coaching. My very first, I'll say my very first coaching job I had. I was actually 14 coaching 10-year-old basketball. So I had a knack to want to coach, and I knew that was something because I knew that when the clock hits zero, Father Time's undefeated. I knew at some point my injuries were going to catch up, and I wanted to stay in the game. And coaching was a passion and a growth that I wanted to achieve and be able to do. And help the next generation. I was influenced. I had great people in the game around me that influenced me playing. I grew up around Skip Bertman at LSU, Rick Jones at Tulane University, the LSU baseball teams of the '90s, the team of the '90s of LSU. I grew up around some of the best ball players in the state of Louisiana. Influenced me so much, and I had that desire to do the same that they did for me. That I get the opportunity to do for the next generation of athletes when I get that opportunity playing in college and pro baseball and provide my knowledge to them and help them grow their love of the game. Like those guys, Blair Barbier and Brad Pressey and Mike Fontenot, Ryan Terrio, guys that I just absolutely grew up around. And
Cub guys, those guys all played for the Cubs.
Oh, yeah.
Terrio and Fontenot.
I love those guys. I love growing. Again, I grew up around them. It was something that I even to this day. 25 years later, I still know those guys from what they've done for me. So I always wanted to do the same for the next generation. So I got myself going and coaching, bounced around in some of the local organizations. And I did want to do my own organization. I wanted to be able to start my own program to be able to have that influence a little bit more. And there was other reasons that I wanted my own program because there's some political stuff. There's some politics in sports. We all know there is, and there's some bad business that takes place. And I always wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to make this be about the kids and be able to provide opportunities for some kids that didn't get opportunities like I did. I wasn't given opportunities as much, or I was overlooked by my high school coach and college coach and some of the people here in Dallas-Fort Worth when I was in high school and college out here that they overlooked me. I want to provide those opportunities for some of those kids who get overlooked and say, hey, just because somebody says no does not mean that you're done. You can find a way to make yourself work. I'm the prime example.
So how many teams do you have out there? I know you have softball and baseball. So are you like go out and recruit kids, or how does that work out?
We have 5 softball teams right now, ages from 10-year-olds, 12-year-old, 2 14U, and a high school 18U team. That's our showcase team. And then we have 2 baseball teams in the program that we're going right now. As far as bringing players in, it's a form of recruiting. We post stuff on Facebook, on social media, saying, "Hey, we have a team. We're looking for players. Reach out to my information here and come in and do a tryout." Sometimes it's word of mouth. Some of the parents that we have in the organization, they say, "Hey, I know a family that's looking for a team. Can I give them your information?" And it's like, "Yeah, here, bring it." We'll always take a look at somebody, even if we have a team filled. We want to take a look. It's about providing opportunity and educating players. So if I have a player that comes in that may not be a fit or we don't have a spot for, but if I can help them with some information as far as on-field stuff, hey, you're doing this with your hitting, or hey, you're throwing like this, or your fielding is this, I can educate them so that when they go to another team, they kind of do it a little bit more and they can kind of impress that coach. Again, it's a battle at times with organizations and teams, but the right mindset is these kids need an opportunity to play somewhere. And if it's not with us, I'm not going to say, well, don't go play. You just wait for us until we have a team. Well, no, go find somebody and go play. But here, let me help you and see if something I can do for you can give you that opportunity to do good for that next tryout that you're going to go do.
still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, good. I was froze. I don't know if that was. Looks like we're still good bars. All right, sorry about that. So is there like when a kid comes to you, is there something that you're looking for that in that kid? Like what are you looking for specifically, like to get them on your team?
We actually so we don't necessarily have tryouts. That's the best thing about what we do. We put them in a practice. We get them in a practice setting. I try to make I try to take out of the stress of a tryout as much as possible. Everybody's nervous. I've been nervous when I do go do pro tryouts. I'm scared, out of my mind at times. So you have a kid who's 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, 14 years old. They're nervous and they're anxious and everything like that. So we try to do what we can to get them in a comfortable setting and be able to just say, go play ball now. Let me see what you can be, what you can do. So we put them through a practice. So that way they can kind of see the kids and what we have on the team. They can see me as a coach. A lot of it, I want to see how coachable a kid is. Do you take in information? That's why, again, put them in a practice. We get and say, hey, let me inform you on something. So how do you take it and how do you respond to me helping you in certain aspects of this? Are you kind of reluctant? Which again, I don't hold that against the kid because there's a coach who they don't know is trying to coach them and change maybe some tweak some things here and there. But let me see how you respond to that. Do you try it at least? Maybe you try it and might like it, or hey, if you don't like it, how do you tell me, hey, it doesn't feel comfortable for me? So coachability is one. And then, certain aspects of the fundamentals and basics, it depends on the age. Like if you're a 12-year-old kid, do you have a fundamental understanding of the basic mechanics? If you're a high school kid, do you have the next level, the advancement side of what you're trying to play and be able to showcase yourself to a college here when we go do a showcase or whatnot. So there's different aspects of what I look for my athletes and everything, but it all depends on the age. It depends on the kid itself and what position they're playing or how athletic they are, how do they move. Is there something we can make a little bit more adjustments to help them out in that aspect to where we can benefit them as well as they benefit us as a team and an organization.
Oh, man. All right. So, Johnathan, let's get into it. Your story, man, is just absolutely incredible, dude. I mean, resiliency is that is an understatement, man. I can't even imagine. Like, I quit riding my bike at 14 because I wrecked it. And you're getting you're out here pitching yourself to colleges, professional teams. Man, I'm just astonished of this, of your story, and you're like resilient. Like people just don't have that you stuck to your dream and you're continuing to push and now you're trying to push other kids and you started your, this program and you're trying to help kids to get to their dream. And that's, something that just, people don't do. You could have quit a long time ago and quit's probably not a word that you have in your vocabulary.
No, it's not.
Let's talk a little bit of professional baseball. The first half wrapping up finally this weekend. We had some surprises. A couple managers fired early on. Two of those teams right now have kind of bounced back. The Phillies have bounced back, and they're in the playoff race here. Were you surprised with the Blue Jays firing the Blue Jays? They're right there in that wild card spot as they fired their manager yesterday, I believe, or Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting you named those two teams. But as far as disappointing, I'd actually have both those teams down as my disappointing teams. Blue Jays, number one, I actually had the Blue Jays as a World Series contender. They were one of my World Series picks in the American League, and it wasn't necessarily a surprise that they fired Montoya. With the amount of money they've spent over the last 2 years, signing George Springer, signing Jose Barrios, Kevin Gausman this year, the pitching staff and what they've tried to assemble around is not done what they were supposed to do. You have, like I said, Springer, Gurriel, Yordis Gurriel. You have the young guys in Guerrero Jr., Biggio, Bichette. There's a lot of talent on that team, and they have underperformed. Really, you can say they underperformed last year too. They didn't take that step that you were hoping to be a contender for the division. The Rays took it last year, and right now the Yankees are going to take it this year. And you were hoping to be that team that really challenges the Yankees and challenge the Rays for that division crown right now. And they have absolutely just fallen off and are a 500 team. And the amount of money they have spent this year and last year's offseason, that's unacceptable. You cannot be a 500 team when the goal has been to build the roster up and be able to compete for a division crown and potentially a World Series. And I think it's not all necessarily Montoya's fault. It's a front office decision. When you go sign Jose Barrios, who you traded for, and you signed him to a 7-year, $131 million deal, but you let Robbie Ray go, who won a Cy Young last year. And he signed for a less contract with less money than what you paid in Barrios. So, that there's some decision making that goes that in the front office that should get blamed for what has transpired this season. But it wasn't. But you have to find somebody. The first one always is going to be the manager. Montoya, he's just not been. He's not done the job that they were hoping for and get this team to be a contender in the for a World Series. And like I said, the Phillies, they bounced back a little bit, but they've kind of come back down to earth a little. Losing Bryce Harper hurts with a broken thumb. But with firing Girardi earlier this year, and I was not necessarily a surprise that they did that. I think they needed the change, and the clubhouse was just not responding to Girardi. And you take somebody who's a little bit more known as far as a club, that doesn't have that full authority of a manager, and you bring him in, and you make him the interim manager. The guys are starting playing a little bit more loose now, and that's what happens. So, and that's what the Phillies have done throughout the second half of the first half of the season. After the Girardi firing, they've been able to play a little bit better, but they're still floating as a 500 team, and that's kind of what they are. It's the same thing with the Blue Jays. You spend a lot of money to bring players in, Bryce Harper, Zach Wheeler, you have Aaron Nola, you have a lot of talent on that team. They're just not able to compete. And when you have the Braves and Mets having success this season, the Braves winning the World Series last year, there's a lot of pressure in Philadelphia to win, and they haven't been able to do it right now. So those are probably the most disappointing teams that I would say in baseball right now, that what they've been able to do has just not been good enough.
Yeah, I had actually both those teams too. I had both of them in my winning their division. I didn't have the Blue Jays in the World Series, but I thought this was the year they would win that division. I had the Phillies too, kind of as the surprise team, as the money they spent. The Blue Jays, I just thought that, because I think even Vlad Guerrero said like last year was the trailer, this year's the movie, and he had tweeted that out. Well, we're still waiting on a good movie in there in Toronto because it just hasn't been happening. What's one more team that just has, kind of, I like to say, shit the bed, you thought was going to be really good and just they haven't showed up yet?
I will say this is the Chicago White Sox. It would be the other team that I put down in the American League that has absolutely disappointed. Again, talk about talent level, young talent level too, with Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu, Luis Robert, and Johan Makeda. As far as offensively, pitching staff has some good pieces into it. And you're 44 and 40. Was it 44 and 45? You're 5 games. The fortunate side for the White Sox, they're still in the race of the division. They're one of the few, only one of, I think, 2 divisions that's still within reach. With everybody else is basically blown out the door. So the White Sox still have a chance to at least turn the corner. But with the talent level that group has, they should be winning that division. They as far as what they're capable of. And there's a little bit of self-destructivism that you could probably look at as far as what the White Sox would. I mean, the team doesn't respond very well with Tony La Russa. La Russa being that older manager guy, and this younger generation it looks at it and say, well, you're the crusty old guy that doesn't understand how the younger kids play today. And I think that was actually almost verbatim what Tim Anderson said about La Russa last year, was that you just don't get it. And so there's been a lot of pushback as far as La Russa being the manager of that team and what they're capable of doing. They haven't been able to achieve it. I mean, again, you're 4th in Major League Baseball in batting average and so they're hitting the ball really well. And that's what that team is built to do. But they're 19th in Major League Baseball in ERA with a 4.02 ERA, and that's what's kind of hurting them right now. Again, that's the theme of the teams that the Blue Jays and Phillies and the other team I actually had was the Giants being a disappointing team. On that list as well, but every one of those teams that that either pitching or the hitting has been on the bottom half of Major League Baseball, and the White Sox pitching is on that with the 19th in the ERA, and that's just not going to cut it. You can do it in a weak division with in the American League Central, But when you go against the other teams in baseball and you're comparing them to other teams in baseball, it's going to set you back. It's going to hurt you. And right now with the Twins are 13th in MLB and ERA, and they're 7th in MLB in batting average. So there's a little bit of a difference in those two teams as far as on the pitching side, that the Twins have been more consistent and the White Sox have not.
Yeah, the White Sox need to take Tony La Russa back to the nursing home where they found him. I mean, you talk about self-destruction. It doesn't help when Tony La Russa's it's like a one ball or one strike, and he's intentionally walking a guy, or walking the bases loaded. So, I mean, he's not doing any favors. But as a Cub fan, go ahead, White Sox, and choke it, because they, I mean, that's a team where, I was looking at the standings currently. The White Sox are 4 back right now in their division, but so they might be able to catch the Twins here, because it's not like the Twins are like world beaters, or even the Guardians. It's not like they're what the Yankees are doing right now. It's still up in the air for that Central American League Central Division. So who's some surprising teams that that we're like, wow, this team, we didn't see this team coming, and is right there the chance to take it?
I'll say I have some teams listed on my surprises. They're not necessarily like, wow, they're about to win the division. I think the teams that we have in baseball right now that are leading the division or within the division race, they were expected to be. So I went outside the box a little bit on my surprise teams. And as far as in the American League, the number 1 team I'll put as a surprise on what they've been able to accomplish after years of being last place and being just the bottom dwellers and the getting their butts kicked almost every other week is the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore Orioles on a 10-game winning streak. They're above 500 for the first time. I think it's been 4 or 5 years that they've been above 500. And so they're able to at least be competitive right now. They got a young little nucleus as well that they're out there competing, and they're playing really well. So it makes you kind of interested to see what that future looks like for Baltimore. And they're a game and a half back of the wild card. Who would have thought that part?
Yeah, I was going to say game and a half of the second wild card. I mean, somebody put some money for the Orioles to make some play, to make the playoffs. That's probably going to cash in real, I mean, we'll get into a little pretender contender, but I mean, right now you got to be feeling pretty good, because nobody saw that one coming, right? Like, I probably couldn't even tell you 2 Oriole baseball players right now. Like, I mean, that's how bad they've been. I mean, so yeah, I'm 100%. Statlander, is he still on there? Salantander, he's their outfielder, left fielder's pretty good.
No, I'm not entirely sure if he is anymore. I know you got outfielders Trey Mancini, you got
Trey Mancini.
Cedric Mullins is the other one that's roaming center field. I don't know off the top of my head who the other outfielder is for them. And that just goes, as you said, that just goes to what they, who the Orioles are. And unless you're a fan of the Orioles, you don't know those guys very well. But and they've been able to do a lot. And I think it actually started when they brought up Rutschman, too, Adley Rutschman, their prize catcher, and he's been actually playing really well, and he's kind of adjusted to the game a little bit, better. And it's going to be determined what happens after the teams make adjustments to how they pitch to him. And that's the key is for a rookie in the big leagues is they don't have any film on you. They don't have any scouting reports on you. They're developing scouting reports as they go against you. And the next time they face you, now they start knowing what they can do to beat you. So he's going to have success right now to start out, but how he makes the adjustments and how he learns from what's going on is going to be the big key. But he's been playing for a rookie behind the plate. He's been playing well. That team's been playing really well with a 10-game winning streak. Again, who would have thought that from the Baltimore Orioles? And that's why they're my surprise team that I have. The Cleveland Guardians, as far as American League, is the other one. 2 games back to the wild card. They're 44-44. They sold off most of their players. They sold Lindor last year, and before the season, they've been getting rid of their pitchers left and right. Clevenger was another one that got rid of. Bauer at one point was. They have just been, they're just a small market team. They do that every now and then, and they find ways to develop players and be able to at least still be competitive. And again, the American League Central is a weak division, so they're able to at least do a little something here and there. And overall, the American League, I think, in my opinion, is actually weak as a whole. Besides the Astros and Yankees, I think everybody else is kind of susceptible to the mid-level teams. And right now, that's why you have the Orioles and Guardians. in contention, at least for a wild card. So, but you got to do the job. You got to be able to go play, and that's what the Guardians are doing right now. And they're playing good ball at times where when they play their division, they're still in it a little bit better. So that's one of the other teams that I have. If I go to the National League, the Miami Marlins are one of my surprise teams, and again, they're in a tough division with the Mets and the Braves, and the Phillies are still right there, but they've been able to play well. They give the Braves fits at times too. That's one of the things about it is they have the Braves numbers quite a bit when it's in Miami and sometimes even Atlanta. They have a lot of talent on that team. Sandy Alcantara is pitching. Probably he's the favorite to win a Cy Young this year. He's pitching outstanding, and you got a young team that's just able to go and play ball and be able to do some good things. Jazz Chisholm is a young superstar that is flourishing right now in Miami, and if they can kind of keep him and build around some of the pieces they have in Miami instead of trading them out and selling them, you can have a Marlins team that could be a competitive team in the division for a few years at least. And the last one, I try to find a second team, and I chose the Cardinals. I chose the Cardinals as a surprise. I know you don't like that. I know you hate that name of it, but they're a surprise because again they're an older team. They're kind of the last hurrah for Wainwright and Molina and Pujols is there. They brought him back and kind of just say, hey, we're going to do one last ride for the old vets of the Cardinals. And they're playing well, and they're in contention at least with the division behind the Brewers, just a couple games out of the first place. They're making things difficult on the Brewers and not giving them the opportunity to have that. Some of the teams that are in first place in the division have those double-digit leads. They're pushing the Brewers to at least have to compete every day and every week. And again, we talked about this on Monday. I would not be surprised if the Cardinals win the division in the NL Central. That's just
I wouldn't be surprised if they won either.
It's just what they do, and when you have that group of leaders that they have in Wainwright, Molina, and Pujols, who's been there and done that, I mean, why not? And again, you have a young group, a young, talented group around them that can go play and win ball games for you. I could not count them out right now, and it's just a little surprising that they're able to hang with the Brewers right now at the midway point of the season.
Yeah, I would have said the Cardinals too. I mean, it's a surprise, but not a surprise to me because it's the Cardinals. So I just see them do it all the time. Like that's the thing. I can't really say it, but like I have to say it. The Yankees too, just how so damn good they are is a surprise. Like their record, I didn't ever think they were going to be this damn good. Like I just think that how good they are is a surprise to me. Like they only have I just looked at 17. What was it? Let me look at their record again. I just pulled it up. 62-27. That's just ridiculously on pace type level. Like to me, I know that's not a surprise. Like, oh, how can you say the Yankees? But like how good they really are is a surprise to me on how good they. So who you got in the second half? Let's play like a pretender contender here. I'm just going to give you some names. Just tell me pretender, contender, and kind of a little bit about it. So Tampa Bay. I mean, they're 13 back right now in their division, but the wild card, they're up. They're the number one wild card. Pretender or contender the race.
As far as getting into the postseason, I'll say the Rays are a contender. They pitch really well, and pitching wins ball games in the second half of the season. They have one of the best pitching staffs as far as statistics-wise, one of the best ERAs in baseball. It's a young staff that had a little bit of experience last year in the postseason. They didn't have a good experience losing to the Red Sox last year, but they were able to get that experience with that young group. And they are absolutely pitching lights out, and they've been able to do so all season. The only thing that concerns me for the Rays is offensively. They've been very inconsistent offensively. The power numbers have not been there. But I'll give them a contender just because pitching does matter in the postseason, especially when you get into the dog days of end of August and September. Going into the last month, you have to be able to pitch, and the Rays are doing that. So I'll give the Rays a contender status for that.
So maybe one of the hottest teams in all of baseball that's not getting no love either. We're talking 20 years now for this team hasn't made the playoffs. The Seattle Mariners. Is this the year they finally get in? I mean, it feels like the last few years, like they're almost there. Is this the year they finally break through? It's been over 20 years since we've seen the Mariners in October. Are we doing it right here?
I will actually say, I'll go right here. 20 years of waiting for Seattle, I'll say they are a contender. They are a fun, exciting team. They're figuring it out a little bit right now, too. And again, the young guys are stepping up. And that's what makes things exciting about this season is that you're looking at the next generation of ball players where we've been so glad to see the guys like Mike Trout be the go-to guy for so long. But man, every team you can turn around and say every team has three guys that are this young group of 23 to 25-year-olds that are absolutely lighting it up right now. The Mariners are no different. And they're playing good ball again. 11-game winning streak for them. It boosted them back into the status of making the wild card. And I think they're good enough. I think they'll be good enough to win games when it matters towards the second half and be able to secure a wild card spot. So I'll go ahead and say that 20 years has been a long time to celebrate in Seattle, and they'll be a contender for a wild card position.
All right, one more American League team, and Boston Red Sox. I mean, right now they are third in the wild card, but they're tied with Toronto, who we already kind of talked about. So the Red Sox, pretender or contender here?
They're pretender. I have no faith in what they've been able to do. I think they've been playing with house money most of the season. They've been able to catch fire at times, but it's a flawed roster. It's been that way for almost 2 years now. That they just have not. They've been underachieving. It's a lot of talent on that team, but they have underachieved, and they've been kind of riding the Alex Cora train, from the World Series from a few years ago, and it's just not been the same right now. And from what he's dealt with the suspension. He comes back to this team, and it's been a night and day difference from what they were to where they are today, and they've not been able to be consistent playing wise. And again, the most talented team in baseball does not always win; it's the most consistent team. If you're not consistent, you're going to struggle. And right now, the only way the Red Sox have been consistent has been consistently playing bad baseball at times. More so than playing good baseball. They're 2-8 in the last 10 right now. They've lost 4 in a row. They got themselves back in, winning a bit of games back in June, but they've fallen back to the earth right now. I don't have a lot of faith with that team. I think there a lot of Red Sox fans are waiting for Chris Sale to come back, but he destroyed a TV down in Pawtucket, I believe it was, in AAA in his rehab assignment because it didn't go well. So I don't see they have a lot of, unless they make some moves to better the team, which I don't even see they have the pieces to do that. I don't think they're going to make the postseason. I think they're going to fall even further behind, and they'll be a pretender status.
All right, I'm going to give you a couple National League teams. The Padres, San Diego, they pretender or contender? They're second place in the second wild card right here. I think we're kind of in agreement. Braves, Mets will probably take that division and probably the other wild card. So the Padres here, pretender.
I'll give the Padres a contender. They're a dangerous team, and they again, consistency matters, and they've not been very consistent. But again, that division is very tough with the Dodgers and Giants. And even when we said that the Giants are one of the disappointing teams, they still play the Padres very tough. So I'd give the status of contender to the Padres. They pitch well. They have some good pitchers on that staff. The offense has been up and down at times, and that's been the hard part for that group is that they can't score a lot of runs. And I know they don't have Tatis Jr. He hasn't played all year, and there's times where Tatis is really good, and there's times where Tatis is really bad. But that's a piece in that lineup that you have to account for when it matters. So I think at some point they're going to turn a corner and they're going to be able to push the Dodgers a little bit. I don't think they'll catch the Dodgers, but they'll win some games against the Dodgers. They'll win some games against the Giants. They'll be able to win games that matter to at least keep them in that realm of the wild card. And I think they will take that second spot in the wild card and be a contender.
All right. So do we even need to go in the National League? Because I think if you're saying we're saying it's either the Mets and Braves, and then we're locked in. You're locked in on the Padres.
Yes, I think that's it. Again, we talked about the other two teams that are chasing them right now, the Phillies and Giants. Where I kind of stand with them. And I think the Marlins. We talked about this on Monday. I think the Marlins could be a sneaky team, but I don't think they're going to do enough, or they don't have enough to catch the Padres for that wild card spot.
So the trade deadline's right up, other than maybe hopefully not Wilson Contreras, but Willie's probably getting traded. I've kind of come to agreement. Is that going to be the biggest name that gets moved is Wilson Contreras? And why is it going to probably be the Mets? So what other big names probably getting traded other than my guy?
Man, I can feel the sadness, and you're going to throw the sadness to me by saying that the Mets are going to get Wilson Contreras, and I got to see him in that royal pinstripe, the royal and orange pinstripe that they have. I think Wilson Contreras will be the big name that gets traded. I think the Mets will be one of the teams. I think the Mets have an eye on a few other players and could be looking at Contreras as being their top guy. If I had to throw another name out there for a trade deadline, and it's a big name, Luis Castillo from the Reds, pitcher who's been outstanding. And he's been a great pitcher for the last 2 years for the Reds. He's just not gotten a lot of help from them. Being what the team has been rebuilding and been trying to, depends on who you ask in Cincinnati. If the team says they're trying to build to be a contender in the future, the Reds fans don't believe it. But Castillo, I think, is going to be one of those that gets traded. It's going to be an arms race between two teams. My Braves, who have been interested in Castillo, we've seen him quite a bit. We saw him in the postseason a few years ago. And he absolutely has dominated us every time we've faced him. The Braves, I think, could be an interested team to get him into the rotation. And the Dodgers, so would be another team that have already made phone calls to the Reds about Castillo and piquing their interest in trading him. It'll be up to the Reds as far as what the price is going to be to get someone like that who – again, he's one of the best young pitchers in baseball, and he's going to get paid that way when his time's come for his contract and for what a team is wanting out of him. I think Brian Reynolds would be another name that kind of keep an eye on for the Pirates. They've kind of been reluctant to trade him over the last couple of years. I think this might be the year that they do. They're still kind of falling behind a little bit in wild card. They're not necessarily close to being a contender or contending for a division or a wild card spot. So if you got to, and this is what the Pirates have done. They've hold on guys as long as they can, and they say, all right, we got to make a decision. Let's make the decision to unload them now. And Brian Reynolds is going to be that guy I could see here this season. There's a few teams that need some outfield. Again, my Braves are probably a team that needed an outfielder. He's been talked about in Atlanta. A lot of fans are wanting Reynolds to be part of that team. I could see other teams that need some outfield. I think the Yankees would be a team that could look at and say, we need some outfield help. We've got Judge doing really well. Stanton at times can play in the outfield, but you have a guy like Joey Gallo who gets time in the outfield is not a really good outfielder. So maybe someone like that could be an option for that club. I think they have some more needs than an outfielder, but it's an arms race. If you have the money and you have the prospects, why not go make a trade and just go get the rich get richer is how I look at it as.
Yeah, when you said the Dodgers in on Castillo, that's exactly what ran across my brain. The rich get richer. I mean, the Cubs will give you Jason Hayward. The Yankees, I mean, you can have him. Take him.
I wouldn't.
We'll probably.
I wouldn't mind that. I mean, that's basically another Joey Gallo, at least for what for the Yankees. I mean, Hayward. I love Hayward from what he was in Atlanta. He's just not been that same player. I know y'all kind of when I saw y'all throw the money when the Chicago Cubs threw the money at him, I was like, oh goodness. All right, yeah.
It's not worked out too. I have two questions for you. So before we get out, one question here: Shohei Ohtani. Like, I mean, how unreal is this guy? I mean, you're unreal because you're pitching left-handed. And after throwing right-handed and then learning how to hit left-handed, this guy's even more unreal because not only is he a great, is he the best baseball player going right now because he's so great at pitching and he's so great at hitting? Like, he's not even decent. He's great at both, it feels like.
In the aspect of what he's accomplishing that we haven't seen in our generation and probably haven't seen in the last three generations, since Babe Ruth. I mean, when you get compared to a guy like Babe Ruth, and I think that's a little bit unfair, but I mean, he's doing things that Babe Ruth was the last one to do. So you have to at least add him to the conversation of the top three baseball players. But because he's pitching really well, he hits really well. You got to at least have the conversation and start with the conversation with Shohei Ohtani. We haven't seen this. We haven't seen somebody in the big leagues pitch and hit and do it at a high level and win the MVP doing it. Probably, if he continues developing and be able to keep healthy, you could have a conversation of him winning a Cy Young at some point as well. So, I mean, again, how many guys could say they've won batting titles, won MVP and a Cy Young throughout their career, and doing it instead of doing it only on 100 at-bats, doing it at 500 at-bats in the season. And that's kind of what he's done. And he's able to continue to do, and it's unreal. It is, like you said. I've never seen it. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying watching what he's doing and then soaking it in as far as how long he can continue to do it is going to be the big question. But you have to, if, as a baseball fan, you have to be able to be impressed. You have to enjoy it, and you just sit back and watch history being made every time he steps on the mound and steps in the box.
Yeah, I mean, he's a video game player. Like, you couldn't even do what he's doing on MLB The Show a couple years ago. I mean, it's insane. So one more question. So give us your World Series pick. I know you said you had the Blue Jays, but obviously you're backing off of that one, I feel like. Yep. So first half of the season here is over. Who you picking? Who we I like to say, who we hammering? Who's Johnathan hammering home for his World Series? Pick one National League, American League, your representative, and then your winner. We're going to hammer it right here. We're going to hold you to it.
Man, I will say it. So I did pick Blue Jays and Braves at the beginning of the season to play in the World Series. Obviously, I will change my answer. I've been intrigued to think that we could have a rematch of the 2021 World Series just 1 year down later. But I feel like we're going to see a rematch of, I think it was the 96 World Series, and that is the Yankees and Braves playing in the World Series in the Fall Classic this year. I think that's the Yankees are the best team in the American League with the Astros right behind them, but they match up very well with each other. They're gonna battle it out throughout. It's gonna be a two-team race in the American League, no matter what. And I think at some point the Yankees are just gonna pull away, and they'll win that matchup between the Astros and the American League Championship Series. The Braves, they haven't even played to even with a 14-game winning streak. I don't think the Braves have played to their full potential still. I think you still got Ronald Acuna, who's still figuring out his knee. He's still trying to make sure he is healthy. So when he does get that to that point of being healthy and back to normal, that's when he's going to start taking off. So we haven't seen the full potential of Acuna this season. The pitching staff has been inconsistent at times outside of Kyle Wright and Max Fried, the two best pitchers in the staff. You have Charlie Morton, who's pitched okay at times. Ian Anderson has pitched okay at times. So you have, and then the rookie Spencer Strider, who's been amazing for them. So you have a little bit more, room in that pitching staff that could be. And then the bullpen's probably the best in baseball. They proved it last year in their postseason run. They're pitching really well this year, but you still haven't seen the full potential of the Braves this season. Again, despite the 14-game winning streak, they have the best record since June 1st in baseball. I think that they're gonna turn that corner, and they'll beat the Mets. They'll catch up to the Mets and really pass them in the division, win the division again, and they'll be again. We'll see. I think a rematch, a third straight year of Braves and Dodgers in the NLCS, and I think the Braves have their number this time again. They kind of figured out how to beat them, and they'll do it. So they'll have Braves and Yankees, and I cannot pick against my Braves. I'm sure you know it with you pick with the Cubs. I'm sure when they win the World Series. I'll pick Braves in 6 against the Yankees in the World Series.
I'm hammering it home for you. Johnathan's picking the Braves, back-to-back World Series champs. That hasn't happened since the Yankees at the turn of the century.
Yes.
Last time we had back-to-back champs in World Series, so Johnathan's picking the Yankees. Well, Johnathan, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your incredible story, giving us all your baseball insight. Anything you want to plug it real quick, go ahead, my man.
I appreciate it. Everybody just go check out our Facebook page. We have Alpha Performance Baseball, Alpha Performance Softball. We're getting good things going right now. We'll continue to grow our organization more. Everything that we're doing is for these kids that we have in the program. We're getting ready to go pack up right now to get to head to Midland, Texas. Nice little 5-hour drive with them. I got my girls going to play in a college showcase this weekend. So. Again, getting the opportunity to go and fulfill their dreams is what we're about to go do this week.
All right, go get it. Hey, Alpha Performance, not Alpha Academy. It's Alpha Performance, folks. This has been another great episode of the Bodkin Show. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe on YouTube. We're also live on Spotify. We're on Spotify now, and iTunes. So head over to iTunes and Spotify. Give us a nice little 5-star rating and a follow. Make sure you're liking, subscribing. We'll be back hopefully on Sunday. If not, I'll be back on Let's Talk Sports tomorrow as well at 11 o'clock Central Time Zone. So check out everything on Let's Talk Sports. I'll be back also on Bodkins and Buffoon on the Sports Buffoons Network on Monday about 7:30. So I appreciate everybody tuning in today. It's been another great episode of the Bodkin Show. Johnathan, I appreciate you again, brother. Best of luck this weekend for Alpha Performance. Get it. Bring it home. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, man.